Many discussions about Nigeria focus on election, parties, and political personalities. But before we talk about election, perhaps we should ask a deeper question. What kind of country do Nigerians want to build? In this series, we explore ideas about development, leadership, institution, and civic responsibility. We bring together Nigerians at home and abroad to reflect on the system shaping our society and the role citizens can play to improve this country. Let me take you back to when this idea started. Back in 2019, I and my friend on screen, Dr. Abiye, we've always been talking about how we can shape Nigeria and contribute our quota to making Nigeria a better place. A lot of people talk about issues around politics and all of that, but we think that there are deeper issues beyond politics, beyond elections. So we're inviting all Nigerians, all well-meaning Nigerians to contribute to this podcast. You can send us an email, you can contact us directly via WhatsApp, or you can contact us via Instagram to leave us a note that you are interested to join this conversation. So on this conversation with me today is Dr. Abiye. Dr. Abiye is a lecturer at the University of Sheffield. He's an intellectual and is someone I respect so much. So let's begin the conversation today. Welcome, Dr. Abiye. I don't know whether you want to say hi to the people first.
Thank you very much, Julius. And thank you for working to get this initiative off the ground. I wanted to raise a point of correction. So I am no longer with the University of Sheffield. So I am now independent and working on some personal projects. But also importantly, I presume that it's important to emphasize that the space we're trying to create is one that encourages conversations not just around Nigeria, but also the wider Africa, just because my position has always been that countries tend to develop regionally. And in that regard, Nigeria cannot really do well if the conversation around its neighbors are also not being put in perspective. I cannot think of any region that has developed that way.
Thank you so much, Dr. Abiye. That's great. Like Dr. Abiye has just said, we are not going to just limit this conversation to only Nigerians. We're looking at Nigerians and beyond, but primarily focused on Nigeria. For me, that is more important because if you can shape your homes and put your home together, you can also help the other nation. But like he said, we are going to be covering issues around different part of our continent. So without further ado, let's go into the main conversation today. Does Nigeria have a blueprint? This is meant to not be a conversation of us criticizing how Nigeria has been operating before now. We are trying to look at things constructively. Dr. Abiye, does Nigeria have a clear long-term national direction, or are policies largely shaped by changing political administrations?
Frankly, at the risk of sounding ignorant, I'd say no. I say no because blueprints, or would I say foundational focus, tends to point towards purpose. And if I ask myself what I think the purpose of Nigeria is, I don't think that it is specific. I don't think that it is primed. I don't think that it is focused. I think that Nigeria means many things to many people, and that, in my opinion, is a problem because I think that every society, or most societies tend to have something at their core. So, for example, in a lot of European countries, you tend to have, maybe not at the origin, but at present, there is a core around equality. Most of the societies tend to focus on egalitarianism. America is about dreams. If you go to North America and you make your dreams come true, I say developing Arab world, or develop Arab world, so your Saudis, UAE, etc., have visions around making the Arab world a prime example or destination for, global views. And China has a specific, specific purpose of working towards leadership, not just within the Southeast Asian region, both global leadership in technology, leadership in politics, leadership in power. So if I said to you, or if I said to any Nigerian today, what's our identity? What are we trying to, can I walk to a 9-year-old in Nigeria and say, but what do you think? What's the identity about Nigeria? Or walk to a 70-year-old or 50-year-old and say, what's, where are we headed to? And like you rightly alluded, I think there is this, I call it stochastic because it has no reading, but there's this idea that everything that we do has to reflect something, in the sense that as a people, maybe the identity that we've come to have is to be loud replicas of what's existing, but that's not purposeful, that's not directional. And when you think about things from that perspective, you cannot be completely prized at the place where Nigeria is as a country.
Right. Looking at that, I know that if you dig back, they have things like Vision 2020, the National Development Plans, Economic Recovery Plans, and past military era. Why have none of these actually shaped the country? What has actually been the issue? Because if those plans exist, what is the issue?
I don't know that a plan is a purpose. Don't get me wrong, they can often be twined or interlinked, but the plan isn't always purposeful. You can have a plan that has no clear objective. You can have a plan that doesn't have a purpose to it. It's just a plan. It's a sequence of events or actions that are going to be taken, maybe in some instances to achieve a certain objective, but not all objectives amount to purpose. We want to know, or we need to know what we want to be. So, for example, if Nigeria wants to be a #1 tourism destination in Africa, and that's the national purpose that we want to have, we then begin to set a plan in place in terms of how we want to get there. The things you've mentioned, your Vision 2020 and all the rest, for me, most times they're noise. They're noise that distract from the core. Why do I say that? What's it called? Miriam Abacha's structural adjustment program, SAP, and all the likes that have come. Those are similar to the Vision 2020 or 22 or 2016 or 23 plans, whatever dates that would have come up. And when you look at them, what exactly are they geared towards? It's about maintaining a certain structure or addressing challenges without any specific purpose. There's a difference between stopping a water pipe from leaking and creating or plumbing a water pipe to bring water into the house.
So, listening to that, you talked about the core objectives. So, what are these core objectives, and how can Nigeria adopt this objective or work towards having a purpose for the country? Is there a plan, or is there, if today you are the president or you are an advisor to the president, how would you guide him for us to have like a national purpose and an objective to put in the country in the right direction, where we have a blueprint and every administration that comes will have a continuous work on this very blueprint?
I'm not that old, and I'm not extremely, I'm not extremely political in that sense. Like I have listened to some other podcasts and some Nigerians who are well versed in the history of Nigeria, and they have political connections and the meetings, etc. And so they can probably give you a stronger insight. But in my humble opinion, I think that the closest that we've come was your Sovereign National Conference that was held, I think, sometime in 2011 or thereabouts.
Yeah, during Goodluck Jonathan era,
during Goodluck's era, but the recommendations from the conference were never really adopted or implemented. That said, that maybe could have been the beginning of a start to a purposeful direction in terms of where we want to go through, and then developing strategies to support, that purpose and the plan. So strategies then align with the plan, we get there. So I think that what I hope this space evolves to is not a space that's dominated by either of us, but a space that is able to bring up and support the conversation from different Nigerians as to where we're trying to get to, what we are trying to do, what we're trying to achieve, and the identity that we want to pursue, so that we have clarity. Purpose becomes easier to support. At the moment, I cannot look at, even if I bring the things down to your state and municipal level, again, I don't have a lot of political friends. I don't know all the political niggles, etc. But I cannot think of a local government in Nigeria where I can say this local government chairman has a specific purpose for his local government, and this is what they're trying to achieve, and these are the pros and cons of what they're trying to do in terms of how perhaps that local government becomes independent in terms of revenue generation, being able to attract foreign direct investment, being able to support a national vision, and being able to move maybe 70 or 80% of its residents out of poverty to generate, this level of development, etc. So if you don't have that at local government levels, you'll struggle to have that at state government levels. And if you don't have that at state government levels, you have a bunch of strangers claiming to be a national state, and hence the confusion and lack of direction that Nigeria has.
Absolutely. I agree completely. And again, this brings me to my third questions. What do you think, in your opinion, what do you think, or why do many policies seems to change with every administration that come in Nigeria? Because there's no, I don't see continuity in any of the policies. Every administration that comes have different policies. So why do many policies seems to change with every administration that come in?
Julius, at the risk of sounding like, an empty drum and saying the same thing over and over again.
Absolutely.
If you haven't, so I'll give you an example. So America is a constitutional republic in a sense that they have a constitution that guides them, and they do not have like a head of state, so they're independent in that sense. But for the average American, one of the most important things that they tend to, make a lot of noise and defer to is the Constitution. And what does the Constitution embody? The American Constitution embodies an ideology as to how its founding fathers wanted the country to evolve and to operate. Now, some of the provisions were not done in good faith, in terms of when you look at things from certain racial perspectives, etc. But it's evolved and remains a guiding principle or a guiding document for how America operates. At the core of those, even though it's not perfect, will be things like fairness and justice, big. And fairness in terms of being able to position people to control the state as opposed to the state controlling people, even though we know in practice it's not always that. But you can see that intention. So when people refer to the Second Amendment, my Third Amendment, First Amendment right, 14th Amendment, etc., those are things that suggest that, this is the direction where we're going to. And America is about dreams. And the average American will talk to you about, I want to achieve my goals, the opportunities here, I want this, I want that, etc., etc. They can have those conversations. And once you have leadership clarity that is tied towards those sort of dreams, you suddenly begin to shift the conversation from just discussing whether or not people have access to water or energy, etc., to understanding that those dreams cannot be achieved without certain fundamentals. I don't care where you're from. If America doesn't have, or how you think, if America doesn't have access to constant energy, power in this instance, America does not develop. America does not prove, it doesn't meet its objectives of its founding fathers. if the UK doesn't have the same access, it doesn't have that. Europe doesn't have the same access. It doesn't have that. So if we talk about why government shifts, etc., and it's commonplace. Most people say Nigerian politics, there's no ideology in it, but the gap in ideology is something that has evolved, I think, much more recently, because if you go back to the very early pre-independence and post-independence, where you had like your Action Congress Party, I think NPP and all that, some of these had clear objectives of what they wanted to achieve for Nigeria, or what they wanted Nigeria to evolve into, or what they wanted their regions to evolve into. And that's why you saw things like, in terms of governance, the what's it called? The leadership of the North, focusing on agriculture, focusing on their strengths, and trying to, create that sort of food independence, but also as an export profile. You saw people like the late what's his name? The guy from the Western region, Awolowo, Awolowo, focusing on education and seeing that as prime way to get to certain objectives. We wouldn't say that we've been necessarily without, an identity or an ideology in that instance, or even a purpose at some point. Just think that probably since the onset of this democratic dispensation, so the last 27 years or so, like 9. Yeah, we haven't really had a vision as a country. It's just been about, somebody being in power and trying to organize stuff, and hence that change. There is no real focus, no real identity to politics.
Thank you so much for that. That actually will lead me to my other question, which you have answered. You've answered it, but for the purpose of the viewer, can a country achieve sustainable development without a shared national direction? Because that actually tied to exactly your last point.
I'd say no. It's just not possible. Whether you're looking at formal SDG goals, that set by the UN, or you're looking at maybe a different definition, and perhaps if we say something like maybe China's definition of sustainable development, you cannot. This is just not possible. It's just not possible, because you have people that are working in different directions, especially for a country like Nigeria, where we are plagued by, supposed to be a strength, our diversity in terms of our ethnicity as well as cultural differences. You need to have clarity for you to be able to achieve that, and we don't. So it's just not going to happen. You're only going to get, at best, you get charlatans.
Absolutely.
That will make promises, and then at the end of the day, not meet those objectives.
Thank you so much, Jota. That will lead us to the next phase of the conversation. What lesson can Nigeria learn from countries that follow clear national development paths? For example, like Singapore, South Korea, Rwanda, and Malaysia. What kind of lesson can we learn, or can Nigeria learn from those countries?
So I'm a big advocate of, what I say, purposeful development, and that is the quiet side to development that we do not often speak about. Singapore has a clear, or had a clear ideology in terms of what they wanted to achieve as a country. What we see is them enjoying the benefits of that ideology, and fortunately for them, they have found a way to maintain it, because it's one thing to achieve a goal, it's another thing to be able to have the culture that maintains that goal. And as far as we know, they're generally militarily neutral, so you don't really hear Singapore getting involved in conflicts. They have a very low tolerance for corruption. Where they are also quite open to tourism, in terms of, or would I say, it's like an expatriate destination for investments as well. Plus, they are very sound financially. So when it comes to financial education, they're one of the leading destinations. So the question about what can we do, I think we have to go back to the drawing board, and that drawing board could be at ward levels, at community levels, at state levels, but having discussions within our families, within our wards, within our regions, within our states, our local governments to figure out what do we want? What do we want? I don't know how true, but I have heard that for many years or for decades before now in the US, when you became elected, particularly to the federal houses, the US Capitol, so the House of Assembly and the House of Representatives and the Senate, you underwent some training, and that training would often focus on, routes to national development, and particularly it was rumored that Michael Porter's works on national development, would be involved. And so you define that in many instances, whether it was right or wrong, Americans tend to, or their politicians tend to focus and talk about what's best for America, what's best for America, what's best for America. And in so doing, they had an identity. America wanted to dominate militarily, he wanted to do this. And so whether you were a Democrat or a Republican, there was a vision. How you went about it could be different, but the end goal was the same. An America that works for Americans. It's simple. In so doing, you still were able to achieve, or they were still able to achieve that despite being a federal state. And I think this is where Nigeria can learn. Because if more than 20 years ago, I have thought to myself, what is it that is unique to Rivers State, for example, that makes it, or that can be a route to its own sort of independence in terms of its finances, culture, identity, etc., but still be a part of Nigeria, just like, Los Angeles is unique, but is also a part of the US. What is it about perhaps Lagos or Jos, etc.? And when we were going to have this conversation, I was thinking to myself, was it yesterday or the day before yesterday, and I thought, we used to have this number plate systems we still do, I believe, in Nigeria, and some would say pride of the nation, food basket of the nation, etc. What was that about? Was that not some sense of trying to build around something, an identity that could have been, let's say, maybe Bielsa is pride of the nation, but I'm not sure what that meant, but perhaps maybe if
Benue was food basket of the nation.
Yeah. So why didn't government at that time think about Benue as food basket and say, you know what, we're going to commit resources to building warehouses, silos, cold rooms, and give ahead of most other places constant power so that we know that we have food security through Benue? Why didn't they look at maybe Taraba and say, oh, the tourist capital of the nation, this is what we're going to do, etc., etc., etc.? Why? What happened? I also think that there was a sense of trying to attach some identity there, whether forced or not, but there was a sense of trying to attach an identity there. But it's all like, you don't look at, say, Cross River and think, or Benue today, excuse me, and say, oh, food basket of the nation. If we have a food issue, and Benue solves that issue, because most people from Benue, farmers, etc. Or you don't go to Benue and see the average person thinking, you know what, I want to be a food farmer, and this is blah blah, etc., etc. Or you're sharing fertilizers, and there is a link between actions and identity, and we need to plug that gap. I think that there's the opportunity to evolve the discussion, today, to involve that discussion. For example, my position at the Niger Delta's strength is not oil.
Yeah.
It's tourism.
What do you think it is?
It's tourism.
Okay.
It's tourism. I've been in England about 20 years, and I've traveled, and I know a bit about culture. We pay for 3 S's. sun, sea, and sand. Yeah. Every year, I don't go to sun, sea, and sand with my family. My madam makes faces. Yeah. It's like we're missing out on something.
Yeah.
And it's not just us. For many families, they save from the beginning of the year to the end of the year or halfway for what? 3 S's: sun, sea, and sand. What do you have in abundance in the Niger Delta? Sun, sea, and sand.
Yeah.
In abundance. That's why I
Absolutely.
go to Dubai. Sun, sea, and sand. That's why people go to Turkey. Sun, sea, and sand. Egypt.
I
Sun,
know
sea,
that
sand.
like back in the days when we go home for Christmas, like in my own all the villages around my area, they have beautiful rivers, beautiful sea with sandy soil.
White
And
clean sand.
yeah, clay, yeah, and people go there to Bed and Beaumont Beach in the and all of those. There is no road now to those places and all of those kind of things. So I agree with you. Like tourism is one of the biggest stuff in the South. And if you remember the idea of Donald Duke when he was creating all the Tinapa and the branch and all of that. So yeah, absolutely, that is one of the biggest, and those are the kind of conversation I think we need to be having because we shouldn't be relying just on oil, like every Nigeria thinking oil. But beyond that, which will be one of our conversation, will be before you have those kind of things, you have to have security. But I'm not going to go into that today.
Absolutely,
So,
absolutely. You're
so
absolutely right.
we will go that route in our discussion. But taking me to the next question, we're winding up towards our last 10 minutes. Um, what role should citizens play in shaping a national blueprint? Should development priorities come only from government? Can civic movement influence national direction? And how can Nigerians engage more constructively in shaping policy discussion?
In simple terms, I'd say balance. And I know it's difficult in Nigeria today, but balance is important. Balance means that we're not just criticizing what the problems are, we're also enabling conversations that prefer proper solutions. And I'm not talking about the stupid sharing of rice and beans and, wheelbarrows, etc. That's very
Absolutely.
stupid. I'm about people beginning to organize or self-organize as communities and to shape purpose at community levels. I look forward to the days when people in maybe Kosofe or, Biapo or different local government in Nigeria would say, oh, this, we're fairly wealthy or a couple of wealthy people are on this street, we can dedicate half a plot to do maybe a solar panel or something that helps all the street lamps on the street work. And provides people with, basic power on the street as opposed to one person having, 3 big generators that are a source of noise pollution and, I am the Oga on the street, that sort of stuff. I'm trying to get to the point that it's the realization that our destinies, or their destinies in this case, are co-twined or very much entwined. No matter how much we try, even, I look at myself and my kids, my very little, when I say affiliation to Nigeria, as it were, not for lack of trying. I mean, they know stuff and cool, but I'm just saying compared to the average Nigerian, they have very little. So, but we're still having this conversation about Nigeria, not necessarily about the UK. I can have a conversation about the UK. And
Yeah.
it's our duty to self-organize in a balanced way where, just figure out what we want. Maybe the national conversation in Nigeria should be about, can we prioritize power as the sole objective of a government for the next 4 years? That means even if they're not doing roads or doing anything, that you're moving the national grid from 2, 3, 4,000 to what, perhaps 20, 30 or 50,000, and the impact that will have, that the government is driving policies that will on the line, maybe no tax or duty on solar panels, etc. Just drive the power conversation. Or is, are we looking at water, etc.? Are we looking at education? I know that you cannot completely neglect everything, but we're at a stage where there has to be purpose to things, and we have to start looking at fundamentals. What is it that needs to be done that will, be a foundation for every or for many other things? Right now, I think that the focus of Nigerians and of government is spread too thin. We want to tackle poverty. We want to generate power. We want to do roads and everything, etc. Minus corruption, the resources are not just generally there. So I think people need to start prioritizing. It might even be just simple things. When we live in a village, say maybe in Cross River or in Kano, in a village where we still have access to the wall and Queen Amina's wall and all that stuff. How can we clean it up? Make the place tidy, well developed, and open it as a tourist destination where people are coming. And suddenly, some tourists are coming in to say, oh, we want to see Queen Amina's wall and it's trending here, etc., etc. Every person that comes in from abroad is spending some money. Yeah. But it's a conversation that people have to have. And like I said, I know I'm talking a lot today, but I'm hoping that as time goes on, these conversations are more about people coming on and being able to say, we wish we can do this, or in my community, I think we can build around this and we can build around that. And this then links us back to the blueprint idea, where the idea or the purpose of our community is following a bottom strategy where people are actually thinking, this is how I'm going to secure the future of my community, not my children, my community, in a sustainable way, because we'll have this that we'll prioritize, and this will help us generate steady revenue that will help us develop the resources and the assets that we want to make our community look in a certain way.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Dr. B.A. You have covered so much today. You have unloaded a lot for us. And I can't tell you how excited I am. Looking forward to the next episode because you have covered a lot. My brothers and sisters, all the viewers, all those listening to us, Dr. B.A. has looked at different areas that we can work together as a nation to develop a national blueprint, which is essentially a long-term plan that defines a country's priorities, its economic direction, institutional goal, and development strategy. Many countries operate with such frameworks that extend beyond individual government. So he looked the question on why does Nigeria operate within such a framework? Do political transaction often reset priorities? Dr. B.A. highlighted a part where we can, taking South-South as an example, where it's not only oil that South-South produce, but South-South can be one of the nation's tourism attraction area. He looked at Benue, where we could have made it like the food basket of the nation by creating factories and industry for giving power to Benue above all others to give them that enablement to produce more. And he touched on different areas where the nation can work and adopt a national blueprint. He looked at examples of different areas in Malaysia and different countries. There are many things that was touched tonight. And tonight's conversation raises an important reflection for all of us. If a country lacks a shared national blueprint, elections alone may not guarantee long-term progress. Perhaps one of the most important civic conversations Nigeria can have is not only about who should lead, but also about the direction the country should pursue. Because leadership choices makes more sense when a society has clarity about its destination. Thank you so much, Dr. B.A. I am very much excited, like he said in one of his closing remarks, that we are looking at different people coming on this platform and telling us how we can improve their villages or their community. This conversation is not just I or Dr. B.A. or some of our friends that will be joining. It's about you too. And you have the ability to join from wherever you are, wherever, in whichever part of the world are. So we are all here. Just drop us a message, put your comment on the comment section. What can we do as a nation to adopt a national blueprint? And currently, what is the problem that you think Nigeria are having adopting a national blueprint that will give us a long-term sustainable plan, a development plan? I want to sincerely, from the bottom of my heart, say that I am grateful to Dr. Abiye for showing up today. And this program continue to run every week, once a week, and we want to hear from you too. Thank you so much for coming, Dr. Abiye.
Thank
God
you,
bless.
Julius.
And God bless Nigeria.
See you.
Remember, guys, this is Aegis Room Beyond the Ballot. And we look forward to hearing from you next time. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Julius. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.